We are all unique. Some of us like to skydive, while others prefer to scuba dive. Some of us like to dress up. Some of us like to dress our dogs up. Either way, expressing who we are and being comfortable in our own skin is key to our own personal development. Endorsing diversity should be something we start from an early age. Teaching a young girl that it's fine if she wants short hair, to wear jeans, play football, or play in the mud. And teaching a young boy that it's equally okay to have long hair, like dressing up, to play with dolls, and play in the mud too, is vital in creating a safe and supportive environment for children. All children should know that there are happy gay people in the world, some of whom might be mummies and daddies, brothers, sisters, aunts and uncles. They should know that it's okay for two men or two women to love each other. It's simple, and it will allow them to grow as accepting people in a world where diversity and uniqueness are celebrated.
Since when exactly? Based on what? Needless to say, in this so-called world that they're describing, diversity and uniqueness aren't celebrated. I know, in fact, it's promoted, forced, and above all else, unwanted, especially where children are concerned. But that doesn't stop these people, it never does. You know, this is the world that the feminists and the LGBT emphasis on the T lobbies envision with their empowering little girls routine, while simultaneously doing the opposite to the little boys. They'll spend all their time telling little girls that they can have short hair and play in the mud and play football, etc, etc. But they won't spend any time at all telling little girls that it's okay to be a little girl. And they'll do the exact same for the boys. And why do children need to know that gay men exist? Why do children need to know that lesbian couples exist? This is based on nothing. You can't sit there and say that these children will be better off in the long run. It's impossible to know that. Where a lot of this gaff falls short each and every time is the fact that the generations up until now got on just fine without this gaff being incorporated into the academia. It's the same as Nicola Thinlips and the SNP when they claim that they're going to clamp down on rapes and sexual violence, etc, etc, by, again, incorporating BS into the academia. And that goes into the assumption that little boys grow up to be rampant rapists and rampant misogynists because of toxic masculinity and because of outdated stereotypes. But again, it's ridiculous because the generations up until now got on just fine without that being incorporated into the academia. If their hypothesis was in fact proven to be true in time, that would mean that every single boy and every single teenage boy and every single man from the generations up until now that haven't had this vital revamped education were all rapists and misogynists. But they're a tiny margin of the populace. So updating the education for them isn't going to change their fucking mindset.
Children in early years in primary schools are like sponges. They soak up information at a fantastic rate. What they take in and the messages they receive and internalise at this age are vital in the foundations of becoming effective contributors, successful learners, responsible citizens and, most importantly here, confident individuals. For most children, between the ages of 3 and 5 years old, they start to develop their own sense of gender identity. For the vast majority of children,
You realise they're a boy or a girl.
this will match the sex that they are born with. Boys will identify as boys, girls will identify as girls. For some children though, this is when they start to identify with a different gender, or with both genders, or with neither gender.
That's just not true though, is it?
Being constantly placed in gendered situations or having gender expectations forced upon them can be very challenging for all young people.
This is feminist propaganda. But they hide behind the facade of gender identities, etc, etc. In other words, they scapegoat the T of the LGBT emphasis on the T. For all this time, for many years, I used to criticise transgenders and the transgender lobby, etc. because I thought it was them pushing for this stuff. But when you really listen to what they're saying, it makes absolutely no sense to remove any notion of gender from the curriculum, etc., on the off chance that one or two children may very well be non-binary, quote unquote, or end up being a transgender. But it makes a hell of a lot more sense when you look at it from the perspective of the feminists, who are hell-bent on removing the gender stereotypes because they claim that's what's holding back girls. When and how might gender stereotyping occur in early years in primary classrooms? And we're expected to believe that we have to remove these stereotypes because little Pete might end up becoming Rachel when he's 7. No. This is feminist propaganda. And why would we expect any less when we have a thin-lipped little fucker running a country?
The most obvious example in a classroom setting is when a teacher asks the class to line up boys on one side, girls on the other. For children
Just so detrimental, isn't it?
who may be questioning their own gender, this simple request
No. Children. And why would children be questioning their own gender?
can be quite distressing. As teachers, we are much less likely to impose the strict gender stereotypes as
You shouldn't be imposing anything, you're a fucking teacher.
some of us grew up with. The idea that boys play football and girls play netball.
Oh, and it was just so detrimental to us all, wasn't it?
That boys run around and get messier and girls are neat and tidy and play
You're
happy.
not forced to do these things. It's just the way that things end up being.
However, there are still instances when reinforcing gender stereotypes can happen, so it's something to watch out for. This is especially true in what we choose to praise in girls' and boys' behaviour. Girls
It just reeks of feminist propaganda. I've seen enough of it now to know what, when you see it in front of you, you just know. Because these feminists, every single publication or whatnot that they pump out, it's the same cliche, caricature, insinuations. And this is no different, that boys are supposedly praised for certain things and girls are shot down. And girls are praised for specific things and boys are shot down. And of course, they don't care about the boys. This is all for the little girls.
Girls are often praised for being neat and tidy,
Here we go, yep.
looking pretty and being helpful, whereas
Girls are, yes.
boys are praised for more making and doing and for being leaders.
Exactly. Now, how does that affect non-binaries and supposed children confused about their gender?
Children are often the most common culprits in policing.
And boys are not encouraged to be leaders. It's just such shit. Sorry.
This is especially true in what we choose to praise in girls' and boys' behaviour. Girls are often praised for being neat and tidy, looking pretty and being helpful, whereas boys are praised for more making and doing and for being leaders. Children are often the most common culprits in policing gender stereotypes. They can be quick to label a toy a boy's toy or a girl's toy and will police its use, even to the extent of mocking someone of the wrong gender who plays with it. Our responsibility as educators is to ensure that these messages are challenged and that all children are treated equally.
And you'll spend all your time promoting all the alternatives, but you won't spend any time at all telling little boys it's fine to be a little boy and vice versa. Record low birth rates, but this gets prioritised.
This is so simple, and a lot of it's probably what you're doing already. Treat all children equally. There are no girls' toys, there's no boys' toys. There's nothing for girls only or boys only. What's praiseworthy for one gender is praiseworthy for both. Try not to split your class by gender. Say children, or use their class name if they have one, rather than saying boys and girls. Have positive visual displays of boys and girls doing different things. If you have a construction zone or you're doing a topic on construction, make sure you have pictures of men and women on construction sites. If you have a home area or you're doing a topic on life at home, make sure you have pictures of men and women
Because that's the problem. That's the first picture.
both doing housework and cooking. For example, have pictures of single-parent families, of grandparents as primary caregivers, and of same-sex couples as parents. When asked about gender issues, can boys do X, can girls do Y, can two girls get married, be sure to be as inclusive as possible.
Ensure you treat all children the same, regardless of their gender. Challenge the gender stereotyping you hear from children, colleagues and parents, wherever possible.
Challenge the stereotyping you hear from children, colleagues and parents. Tips from LGBT Youth Scotland. I'll tell you this, if I ever have the blessing of becoming a parent and some wanker from LGBT Youth Scotland
and or a teacher decides to dictate how I decide to raise my children, there will be merry fucking hell to pay. Peace.